What's up, everybody, and welcome to the official PlayStation podcast of the KT Data Network. We are the LittleBigKast. On today's show, we're joined by special guest Robin Haislett, who spills the beans on gender roles in Final Fantasy VII.
Yep.
Drew basks in the plush ball pit of KT's anime collection.
What else are you
and
going to
Jeff
bask in?
bemoans, what's that?
So what else are you going to bask in?
You know what? Those plushy ball pits are something special. And Jeff bemoans the loss of Snow White's head. That poor girl. All this and more coming up on episode 23, ladies and gentlemen. Episode 23 of the LittleBigKast. Go ahead and kick it off, KT. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 23 of the LittleBigKast. My name is Jeff Hawks. I'm your host for today's show. And with me today, as always, Drew Tyler.
Hey, welcome. Good to be here. Glad to be here. It's another day. Whatever. Let's do this.
It's another day. And we actually have a special guest today. Dr. Robin Haislett is...
Throw the doctor in there. Make sure you say Dr. Haislett.
Oh, no. Not Dr. quite yet. I haven't defended the dissertation, but
hey, you
they've
write
run
the
me
thing.
through all of it.
You just write the thing. That's all you have to do.
I know, you write the thing, and then you bleed.
So very soon to be... We have a soon-to-be doctor on the program. So it's a very special day. And I'm excited, guys. It's been a long time. We talked last week, but it's been months since I've been able to talk with Robin. She's very cool. So if you're tuning in for the first time, Robin is a special guest on the show today. She is a new teacher and professor up at Weber State University and has kind of made it her mission to... I don't know. How do you just...
To spread the love of gaming throughout all areas of life.
Very cool. That's the perfect... Yeah, that's the perfect elevator pitch for gaming in academia. But as always, we're going to jump into what's been happening for the week. So, Drew, I'm going to start off by throwing it over to you.
So I have had myself quite a good week. I really enjoyed all my weeks, but we're getting closer and closer to school, so I spent a lot of time prepping for school this last week. I even cleaned my office, which I found stacks of papers from 2012. So it has been over a year since I've actually picked things up and cleaned my office. So that's kind of a big day. I visited KT in his natural habitat. So that's first. How long have I known you?
Are we going 4 or 5 years now?
4 or 5 years. So he's producer of the show, and now we're meeting every week to do this stuff. But yeah, first time I actually got down to his house because he showed off his KT caster. He built a TriCaster out of components and parts so he can do multicam switching. So I went down to kind of view that to see if I can't recreate the same thing for students. So that was awesome. Other than that,
I got to interrupt you. So you're saying that you saw KT in his natural habitat. So when you say that, the first thing I think of is that you're going in with the Steve Irwin kind of.
Oh yeah.
You're like, do you see the KT in his natural habitat, surrounded by servers and monitors?
Yes. As you say, it's exactly.
Observe as he consumes
very slowly.
And everywhere, not only servers and monitors, but there were also, I don't know, probably hundreds of unopened character packages and rare items.
There's only 50 there.
No, I only saw 50. But you still had to wait around, and there was this pathway that you had to crawl to get back to the studio side of things. It was awesome.
So it really was like a wilderness.
Yes, it was. It was dangerous.
It's just plastic instead of grassland.
Instead of quicksand, he's got kiddie pools full of anime plushies that he just dives and swims around in.
Hey, I call that my soundproofing.
That's what that was. That's what that was. Kiddie pools of anime slushies, I believe, is what that was. So anyway, it was
plushies, not slushies. What's an anime slushie?
I don't know, but they just came out with Starburst slushies the other day. They actually was okay.
Anyway,
it was awesome to see him there. It was really cool. He let me bug him on a Saturday morning. I took all the kids. I didn't bring them in the house. They couldn't handle the kiddie pools of plushies. So
kids aren't allowed to play with KT's toys.
Yeah.
He's like, these toys are mine.
None of them are open. They're all boxed. You can't touch them. I keep telling him he's got to buy a studio space so that he can have a sweet backdrop. He would have the coolest backdrop if he would like put those things out on display, but they're all boxed up because they're special. Anyway, on to the games. Sorry. On to the games. I did play Wolf Among Us, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And I played a lot of Hohokum, which you and I played at CES, if you remember, Jeff, almost 8 months ago. So I splurged, which you know I rarely do. I got Hohokum, and I've been enjoying it. It's fun. It has it lacks a little bit of pacing as you go through the game, but the puzzling and the fun of just kind of exploring and going, oh, if I do that, then this happens, and if I do that 10 times, then this happens. So I've really enjoyed that kind of aspect of the game. So I like it for that mindless driving of a sperm shape.
Right.
It's the mover. It's just called the mover.
It's the mover? Is that what that is?
Yeah. Yeah.
But in that very first level, you got to admit that there is...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's very much a spermy shape inside of an eggy shape, and you just drive around and light things up. So, the mover. It was awesome. I did... What else? I think I wrap it up by saying I went back to school shopping again for the first time since probably 2012. The wife took me to a store. We got a babysitter like last minute. It was like within a half hour we texted and we're like, if you want to come watch the kids, Drew needs to go shopping. So we went out to a place I will not name, but I refused to ever shop there. So I was almost like felt like I needed to be in like a mask or like incognito so nobody ever saw me in that store because it's too corporate.
Now I'm curious what it is.
It's a Gap. I shopped at the damn Gap. So embarrassed.
Yeah, Gap's a special place.
Anyway, I hate it. I've hated that store forever and ever. But I found shirts that maybe this is embarrassing, but people actually had complimented me on the one Gap shirt that I owned, and so I was like, maybe this isn't a bad thing. I could get 4 of these shirts and get 4 times the compliment.
It's an efficient way to look at it.
Yeah. So when you see me, in the class, Robin, if you just look in and be like, hey, don't tell anybody that I got those at the Gap. That's still a secret.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Right. That's it. That's it. And then other than that, I'm toying with the idea of starting a Udemy course, which just kind of a fun behind the scenes. What if I had an online course for everybody in the world? Like, I mean, KT's taken my digital media class like 6 times because he tunes into my live streams from every class. And so I thought, what if I just do that for everybody? So that's what I've been up to. What are you guys doing?
Robin, do you want to go next?
Sure. What I've been doing is moving to Utah from New Mexico, Texas border. So about like 800 miles, doing the whole like buying a house thing. And now I'm figuring out why my windows are leaking after this little rainstorm. So.
Oh dear.
I know. Adventures in homeownership.
Yes. Oh dear.
But lately we've been playing my little 6-year-old daughter. We've been playing Skylanders Swap Force. Incessantly. And it's funny because like she'll be playing something like, no, honey, you need to get Ginny on there. It's like, no, I want to play with my favorite one. Like, just you're doing it wrong. Let me see this.
There's a strategy to the 6-year-old, don't you get it?
But been playing that, but that's just like a constant thing. Like we have, I think, 1 to 3 bags of Skylanders now, so it's a very sad addiction. And I've been playing a lot of Hohokum too.
Have you?
And I've been playing Entwined ever since they announced it at E3.
Do you like it? I thought about it, Entwined. Did you play it, Jeff?
I really like it. Like especially for the PS Vita. I've just been playing it on that, and then I started playing it on PS4 like right when they announced it, and they said, by the way, this is out now. I'm like, you what?
Yeah.
I don't have to wait?
I thought that was a very cool way to announce and get a game out there. I was very impressed.
And it came from a school.
The way that they did that. Yeah, I thought it was cool.
That's cool.
I didn't stay with it very long. I jumped into the Destiny Alpha, and so it kind of got tossed under the rug for a minute. But I'm looking forward to going back to it for sure.
Yeah, I was messing around with the Destiny beta until recently, and I had way too much fun with the Destiny beta. It isn't a good thing.
You've got like two weeks and it comes back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's too long of a wait, though. Let me ask you something, Robin. So you've got a 6-year-old daughter, you said?
Yes.
Okay. So then all three of us have daughters. I have a 4-year-old. Drew has...
I got 3 on my own. Yeah, 3 daughters.
And so let me ask you, like, obviously you play games with your daughter. What has been like, has there been a most important or most fun game that you've played with your daughter thus far? Like, has there been a game that you would say, this game is what made playing games with my child special?
Well, there were a lot of games that I would play when she was very little and she couldn't play with me. One of the games that I played with her when she was super little, like needing to be rocked to sleep, was Flower. And so I'd hold the controller and like rock her based on where I needed to steer her.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. I thought you were gonna say Outlast or something. I'd be like, I just sit her beside me and see what she thought of. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love Flower. That's a great one.
So Flower was definitely one of them, and right now she's like, this is when she's actually getting into playing them on her own and not being frustrated with controls.
Yeah.
So that's definitely been Skylanders, because her and I can play at the same time. We can switch. She's, at first when she was too young to get a hold of the controller, it was, she would be the person to switch out the characters. And so she would be the Portal Master.
Yeah, I love Skylanders because that was one of the ones I played with my girls, except for my problem was the 6-year-old, now 7, would play with me just fine. The 3 and a 5-year-old would go up and switch our characters all the time, and so we could not play. So once I put them in the room and locked the door, we were fine.
Yep.
That's cool.
So that's been the thing.
Very cool. So yeah, I think, I don't know, for me, I would say that Child of Light was like, the game, because like we played Ni no Kuni together and she loved that, and it was like, oh, feed the monsters, you got to feed the monsters, Dad. And I loved Ni no Kuni with my daughter, but Child of Light, like, it's a story of this little girl who's trying to get back to her dad, and so Olive's holding on to my arm and she's like jumping anytime there's a spider, and she's wrapped up in the story about this little girl and her dad. And so for me, I mean, that was the game that for me, it was like, man, if I can just keep finding games that bring us together, I don't know, that was like a really encouraging thing. Like, I don't know.
Well, at the same time, sorry to interrupt, the game itself was built for having a small child playing along with you, like the little Igniculus character.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, like you just give them the other controller and then they get to control Igniculus and like, oh, help me in this battle. And, they
waste all of his juice all the time.
I know!
Yeah, it's good. It's awesome.
What about you, Drew? Like, has there been a game that was like this game?
I think it would be Ni no Kuni for us, because that was one that they would like. I could bribe them with that and say, okay, if you get this done, we'll play 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And that was one that there several times we played way past bedtime because we were just enjoying being together. And for a while, I could get all 3 girls on the couch to kind of watch and be in tune to the story and enjoying the story part of it. So that's definitely been fun for us. Awesome.
So sorry, Robin, I kind of sidetracked your breakdown, but that was, I don't know, one of the things I was curious about. Sorry, continue.
Other than that, it's been playing the remastering of Last of Us. And, writing the course syllabi, the things that I actually am getting paid to
do. I still got to do that. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
I got another day.
Drew's notorious. Yeah, Drew's notorious for being like, the last 2 days before school starts, if you watch his Facebook feed, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. He's like, still going strong. We're going to get this done.
And it's also the last 2 or 3 days before grades are due that I'm grading all the, you know me.
Yeah, I think you're better with like the grading side than you were the syllabus side. Like,
I always had it on time.
Grades were always on time for you.
Yeah, I'm a news guy, a news junkie. I guess, well, not junkie. I grew up in the news world, and so that's where I kind of cut my teeth on setting my own deadline and hitting it. I know I can do it in such a short time that I procrastinate very well. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. So how's the movement though, Robin, overall? Like, the move's been good. And what's the move like for you from Arizona to Utah? Still hot?
Yes, extremely hot. The drive was, crossing your fingers if you had signal or not.
Right.
And so it was just like a whole lot of flat nothing and then a lot of mountainous nothing. And then, but the move itself was totally fine. I had asked one of my friends to come with me and said, hey, you can get an all expense paid trip to Utah for 2 weeks if you come and help me, organize the movers to come in and, help me unpack boxes, play with the child while I try and, go to a new faculty retreat kind of thing.
Right.
So.
And everything worked out.
Yes, everything has been working swimmingly.
So the great thing about where you're at right now is that Drew is in charge of an entire group of students that just have to do what he says to get a good grade. And
pretty cool.
they got tuition paid for already. So if you need something, you should be like, hey, Studio 76 staff, my yard needs to be mowed. I mean, that's what Drew does.
No, you can make
Drew
a video montage about it.
Perfectly manicured, right. That's
brilliant.
That's what he does.
Brilliant.
So if you need help, you just throw Drew a line. He'll get Travis Denny over there to cut down trees and mow.
Yep, exactly. That is what we do. We've done it. We'll do it again. We cannot fix leaky windows. We cannot do anything. I'm sorry.
Isn't Rachel part of this army too?
Oh yeah, Rachel's a part of that team. Yeah.
Very cool. Anything else, Robin?
No, that's been the biggest development in my world.
Very cool. Hey, KT, is anybody else hearing like a weird reverb sound?
We're good now.
Just for a moment.
Okay, we're better. All right, moving on. So I'm still traveling. I'm in Dallas right now. I spent last week in Anaheim. So I've been all over the time zone spectrum, and I'm just at this point I'm just tired all the time. So, but I'm happy. So tired but happy. Things are good. I've spent 1.5 days in the last month at home. And in that time, Claire and I have been binge watching and trying to catch up with all of our TV shows. So The Killing just released on Netflix, season 3, which was their
Killing? Oh.
The Killing. So The Killing got canceled on FX, and Netflix purchased it and renewed it for a final season. So we watched 12 episodes of The Killing over the 1.5 days that I was home. And then yesterday, before I hopped on the flight here, we watched 6 hours of Homeland season 3 straight.
Where do you find this time?
That is.
It's
wow.
We eat, the kid goes to bed, and it's we got to catch up on our shows. So if you're not watching Homeland, you should. It's awesome. It's fantastic. KT, if you haven't watched it, this is a show that you would love. Anyway, moving on. What am I doing? So I replayed the Wolf Among Us for an indie game. Yeah. Also, Drew, I have a new new game for us to play down in the haunted library.
Did you play the PT demo, that Silent Hill?
No, my brother played it and called me and said he screamed like a girl several times. The demo. So I feel like this is something that we should set up and do another live stream from the basement of the library if you are down. And Robin, you would be more than welcome to join us if you can find a babysitter. I will set the studio up and make it all ready to go, but I'm still having nightmares from the Outlast days. I don't know that
I've watched the Outlast cast.
Oh, you were actually very helpful through the Outlast cast. That was so
fun.
that did go well. That was pretty fun.
The whole time we were playing, Drew was like, "Oh, Robin says we need to go left." So thank you for getting us through Outlast, because that was kind of nightmarish, but also super fun.
Yeah, I've been wanting to see what this PT demo looks like, so I'm interested to know more.
Yeah, he said it was pretty terrifying. But that's been my week, so without any further ado, let's just hop into the news. If KT can cue up that sweet, sweet jam.
I love this jam.
I know, right? All right. So, first up for this week, the PlayStation 4's upcoming game share feature. It's been announced that it will have a 60-minute limit per session. Basically, Sony has confirmed with GameSpot that the share play feature, users will be limited to 60 minutes per session. There's no limit on the number of times you can use share play, meaning that you can conceivably basically start share play up again after that 60 minutes is up and then continue playing. So it's not necessarily ideal for what a lot of people kind of were envisioning, that you could just sit on like you could sit at home and play your friends' games all the way through. But I mean, to me, this makes sense. 60 minutes is a long time to be able to play a game, and I think what they don't want happening is me calling Drew up and saying, "Hey, I just bought this game. I'll just turn it on when I go out of town, and you can just play through all night long." I
wouldn't do that. No.
But the idea behind this, right, is that they want to encourage more people to be finding games that they love and purchasing games rather than playing on somebody else's thing. So
I think 60 minutes is a great time. I think that's plenty to do that type of game, especially where they were talking about the co-op ability, stuck on a part or level, or want to just play through something together. I think 60 minutes is just fine, and it's enough to discourage the abuse of it and keep it within the realm of what they're hoping. So I'm all on board for that.
What do you think, Robin?
I think that I'm kind of frustrated that it took them so long to get this out.
Yep.
But it was like, hey, we're going to announce this, and look at all the cool things. We're going to have, live streaming your own games. You can, do the Gaikai thing. And now they're finally figuring out how to get this conceivably done with the game sharing. And I think the 60-minute limit is totally doable. I think it makes logical sense for them to do it this way. And it's never going to replace, like having someone sitting next to you on the couch and literally handing over the controller, which is, I think, what they were trying to do in the first place. But I think that doing this limit is about the smartest thing they can do.
I think so too, and I agree with you. That's one of there were a couple things that from the very beginning they were saying, hey, this is launching with X, Y, and Z, and this is one of the things that didn't show up like they said it was going to. But I'm glad that it's coming now. Better late, I suppose, than never. But
like all the launch titles.
Right, exactly. So anyway, anything else we want to talk about before on the game sharing features before moving on? No? Okay. So, news item number 2, titled, "Don't expect to see too many more PS4 HD remasters of PS3 games." So, this is a quote coming from Jim Ryan. "You can't have too many of these things, otherwise next gen just looks like a rehashed last gen, and we certainly don't want that." So, this is an interview with PlayStation Europe. So basically, he continued by explaining that, like, The Last of Us made sense to bring to current gen systems because it came out at the tail end of the PS3 life cycle, and that it was a game that people, I mean, really, and he's right in this, it's a game that people need to play. So a lot of the people that are swapping over from the Xbox world over to the Sony side, which is a pretty significant amount of gamers, this is a game that they need to play. So to me, it makes sense. To Jim Ryan, obviously it makes sense. And as we'll see in the next news item, monetarily for Sony, it makes sense. So what do you guys think?
I think that I'm really glad that they are not doing any more remasters, because I felt like I got the PS4 at launch and, got the Assassin's Creed for it and, Resogun and, like, all of the other games that you could get, which were, like, 3.
Right.
Like, right at launch, because I was not going to get Knack because it was horrible.
Come on! Knack was not horrible. It was fun for the 10 minutes that I played it.
I like Knack.
And Knack was okay. But you're right, there wasn't much there at the beginning. That's true.
Yeah, there really wasn't anything for it, but I'm excited that they're going to actually be focused on getting new games out there instead of rehashing the old ones. I felt kind of cheated a little bit, and I completely agree that Last of Us does need to be on PS4. I mean, I got it on PS4, and was it like a waste of money? Kind of, but it was totally worth it for me. I was like, hey, splurge. But I don't know. I'm very glad that it's not going to feel like, PS4 is PS3 but prettier.
Yeah.
Which I got a chance to play Last of Us Remastered on the PS4 this last weekend. Fans of the show know that I long for a PS4. But a buddy of mine invited me over. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing today? I'm going to go buy Last of Us and play it all day," because he has both the Xbox One and the PS4, and he never plays anything on the PS because he doesn't have any games for it. So when he said that, I was like, "Great, I'm going to clear my schedule and come play with you." So we did about 3 hours together. And I was really looking forward to going back and playing with him the next night when all my responsibilities were done. And he had finished it already. I was so sad because I didn't get to play. But on this topic, I totally get why they're saying, yeah, we're not going to remaster everything. I think that there are certain titles that would do good to remaster, but maybe not right away. Like they shouldn't be stacking them out and be like, okay, here's this one, here's this one, here's this one. But I think in a year or two, if you pull out some of those games that had that solid response in the PS3 land, they could see a nice injection of, if you think about ROI, how much time and energy it would take to remaster, say something like the Uncharted series. That may be something like we saw the Halo Master Chief Edition. Like they're putting it all together and bringing it out. I see something like that deeper in the future, but I get why they're like not pushing them out right here now. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think. I mean, for me, because I totally understand where you're coming from, Robin, where you have a number of games that you were promised at launch, right? And everything.
Watch Dogs is all I have to say about that.
Yeah, and they were all delayed. And then we just started getting this huge influx of rehashed PS3 games. And not to say that the games we got aren't good. I've been enjoying the Tomb Raider remake. I will eventually get The Last of Us again. Although, like, I don't know, like part of me feels like personally with The Last of Us, I felt like that was a game that really affected me. And I think a lot of people felt that way. But like, I mean, Drew knows, like I spent weeks like in just this slump where I was like, man, how do I understand so clearly the decisions that Joel makes while they're like bad decisions? Like, I was so conflicted with like, and I'm trying not to spoil it because Drew is a crazy person that hasn't finished the game yet. But I don't know. I'm having a hard time going. Like, I want to go back and play it, but I also like the experience that I had with it the first time I played it was really like a special experience, and that sounds really lame. But it's true.
Not lame at all.
Yeah, it was a special experience. Like it was playing that game, you could tell it was a game that will change the way that video games are made forever. So I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Our item number 3, Jeff Knightley today has reported on his Twitter feed that the PS4 was the number 1 selling game console and that The Last of Us was the number 1 selling game in the month of July. So this is following Sony's GameScom report that the PlayStation 4 has sold 10 million units now worldwide. That's pretty significant that a remade game is the number 1 selling game worldwide in July. Like, that's ridiculous that it's a remake. It's a game that probably most of the people that own a PS4 already have, and it was the number 1 game. I think that's pretty significant. What do you guys think? I mean, what made you get it, Robin?
What made me get it was, like, for me, it didn't really matter when they did the comparative screenshots. Oh, like the blacks are blacker and the shadows are more crisp. It was like that didn't really get me at all. I thought that what they did with the photo feature, how you can like you can pause the game at any time in the action and then, be a fly on the wall and move the camera around and see all of the angles of any specific scene. I thought that was a neat touch to it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I felt that I was a little bit greedy when I got it for PS4, but I don't regret it at all, because I completely hear you on the, kind of feeling like it just kind of sucker punches you a couple times during the game.
Right.
And, it really does change that emotional level of storytelling.
Very cool.
I like blacker blacks.
Yeah.
That's
it's
kind
pretty.
of a big deal.
It is a pretty game.
I like blacker blacks. That's all I got.
All right. We'll continue then. And I'm going to cut out a couple of these news items, but I do definitely want to touch on, and I'll just touch briefly on number 4. Basically, a lot of PS4 fans were kind of complaining about the Gamescom announcements.
Come on.
Saying that they hadn't announced enough games. Shuhei Yoshida came out and basically said that in selecting the games that they wanted to introduce, we realized it wasn't possible to fit everything into the frame of the conference. So unfortunately, there were some games we couldn't introduce at this time. However, he says to expect these games at the Tokyo Game Show. And so Tokyo Game Show is Sony's home turf. I hope that we see maybe this RPG that's been rumored from Guerrilla Games. I'd love to see what Sony Santa Monica is working on. There are a number of Sony first-party studios that haven't announced what they're working on. We know that Sony has more first-party studios than Microsoft, but recently it has kind of felt like there are more exclusives going to the Xbox side, or more compelling maybe exclusives are going to the Xbox side than to the Sony side. And it's kind of this interesting kind of lull that Sony is in right now, where we know that they have half a dozen first-party studios that haven't announced what they're working on. It's kind of weird. So hopefully Tokyo Game Show, they get some of these announcements out and we can start being excited about the next year. What do you guys think?
I'm a short-term guy. Tell me what's coming out next week. That's all I need. I'm excited about some of the ones that are coming out in this fall that are coming that we already know about.
Right.
I'm not sure there's anything that I'm really holding on to, waiting to hear about something for coming. But I guess I don't know. I guess I'm satiated. I'm satisfied with what's coming out. Give me a Little Big Planet. Try some Destiny in a couple of weeks. So those are things that are going to keep me through the school year. But I don't know. I'm excited to see what they're coming up with. But I wasn't all that disappointed with the Gamescom stuff.
Right on, Robin.
Well, at least it didn't sound like the Xbox One announcement where it was TV
right.
games. TV. That's not what happened. It was just that they didn't announce all of the games that they are discussing. And I feel that's fine. For example, at E3, Media Molecule, who does, Little Big Planet, didn't have the announcement going.
Right.
They had just gotten done with Tearaway, and they felt that they didn't have a solid enough thing to rush something for that announcement. And I think that was a pretty solid move on their part. It's saying, we are going to work on the right schedule for our studio so we can make you a great game, instead of saying, it's E3, crunch time.
Right. Well, that, and then also, like we were just talking about, right? I mean, how many games have we been told about and been excited about? Hey, they're coming out this fall next year. Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I agree with both of you guys. If you're going to announce it, be ready to announce it. Have it be at the right time so that you can release it at an appropriate date and you're not bumping it back. I'd rather wait and be surprised by something good than be pumped on something and be disappointed when it's bumped. Topic 5, let's see, this is by the Wall Street Journal. Basically, a recent study has shown that 48% of gamers are female. and I thought this was pretty significant, especially considering, Robin, as you know, as a female gamer, you experience this, I'm sure, a lot, but also Rachel has talked on this show about like the sexism that exists, especially in online games, and kind of the stigma that comes with being a female gamer. What did you take from this article, or like what is your... So the one thing I wrote down was Rachel doesn't use a headset when she plays online, does Robin? Because I think that's pretty telling. Like when you're playing online, are you communicating with the people? Like, do you let people know that you're female, or is that something you keep to yourself?
Usually not. Like, especially, there's a lot of research in this area, which is fascinating. Whenever I'll play online, I won't go in without a buddy and like saying like I'm going to be playing with someone. Like I will meet them online and then go into a game, so I have this kind of safety net, and like I at least know one person in there, and so it's very not the meritocracy that it should be. Like I'm not judged based on my efforts; I'm judged based on, you know, the fact that I have a higher pitched voice.
Right.
So yeah, I usually don't use headsets whenever I'm playing and I don't have a buddy with me.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's pretty much what Rachel said as well. Just that, and it's something that I've seen too. I mean, you'll be in a game and a girl speaks, and then it's like instantly,
it's
guy
ridiculous.
becomes a wolf, and there's this sheep there that they can go after, and it's pretty ridiculous. So hopefully we can figure out a way to normalize female gamers. I mean, 48%, that's half of the gamers that are playing games, but for whatever reason they're being marginalized and stepped on and kind of steamrolled in the gaming community, and that's really unfortunate because it kind of destroys it kind of destroys the credibility of gamers as being like a legitimate hobby, as being a legitimate profession, as being a legitimate whatever. Like it destroys that because there's it's lacking equality. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Drew. You're looking.
I'm just leaning back and listening. I rarely play the big multiplayer games online, and so I think the only thing I played even recently was the Destiny beta, where we I was able to chat and play. So I don't know. I have to go off of the research because I have not experienced a whole lot of multiplayer. There's only one woman in my life.
Yeah. Very cool. All right.
Well, so we can talk about some of that later on because I know Robin's done a lot of research on that.
Yeah. We're gonna jump through. So I'm gonna skip the very last one. No, I'm not. Minecraft PS4 didn't pass certification testing, so just stay tuned for that. It's getting bumped. Also, at Gamescom, No Man's Sky has announced. Basically, they had a conversation with the No Man's Sky co-founder Sean Murray, who took some time to explain basically the world of No Man's Sky and how much content there actually is there. And he started by explaining how much time it would take to visit every planet in this world on a 32-bit number system, which it was originally created on. And he said something to the effect of it would take, if you spent 1 second on every planet, it would take you 5,000 years to see every planet at 32-bit. So they didn't feel like that was ambitious enough, so they jumped to a 64-bit number. And the way that they described that, he says that it would take about 5 billion years to explore if you spent 1 second on each planet within the game with no bathroom breaks.
That is so crazy.
So,
wow.
Given that the Earth's sun has about 4.6 billion years of fuel left before it flickers out and dies, that pretty much ensures no one will ever see every planet on No Man's Sky. So that's pretty crazy. Like that's a very crazy thing to say. But it's also very cool.
I'm fantasizing about like raising babies to just play No Man's Sky and then training them to train their children to train their children to see if maybe we can't just get
raising an army to.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
We'll beat this game.
Wow.
It's Yeah, that's crazy. Like, just to think about the programming that must go into that to make that work is pretty incredible. So moving on, we'll jump right into new releases and then into Indie Game of the Week, and Drew's going to take both of those. So KT, you want to kick out the jams?
Hey, I'm going to speed it up. Lots of indie games that's coming up. Lots of new releases, but let's take it to the list. KT, you've got a list there to show, and I'll just run down as you show it. Basically, big ones that are out recently, as in, I believe just yesterday, probably 2 days ago for those of you listening to the podcast world. Diablo 3 Ultimate Evil Edition has just come out. Counter Spy's been out for a little bit now on the PlayStation Store. That's for the Vita, PS3, PS4. Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare. I know you're excited about that one. KT, you've already played that, haven't you? I think you have. I think you
best FPS this year.
Yeah, see, best FPS right there. Other Vita games: Crimson Land, Gravity Badgers, PS4 Hotline Miami. I think you were talking about Sword Art Online. Were you talking about that, KT? The PS Vita game that again also just recently came out.
Yep, it's a spin-off of a popular anime on there, so I'm excited to go into the world because it's about people getting stuck in an MMO. So now you're going to be in the MMO.
Nice. That's worth looking forward to. And then the other one I thought it was that I'm looking forward to after I finish the first one is Tales of Xillia 2. I've started the first one about 10 minutes in, but I'm going to get back to it. So Xillia 2, Kung Fu Rabbit, and the last Tinker City of Colors, which is those are ones that just recently released, right? So then down the road, if you look out 2 weeks it's about 2 weeks. 19 days. Destiny opens up again. As far as we know, that date's not getting moved. I mean, we've seen a lot.
There will be riots in the street.
Yeah, I think you're right. So does that mean I have like 19 days to find my funds to get my Glacier White Destiny bundle?
Absolutely.
Drew, you need to get this so that you can all four of us just need to get on and just work together.
I know. KT, does the body have enough plasma that I could donate enough to get my 400 by now?
You can make $250 a month donating plasma.
Not enough time.
You donate twice a week.
What other kind of banks are there?
There
Sperm
also
donation.
Stop it. So, I'm gonna mow some lawns. That's what I'm gonna do. And the other one that I think that we're looking forward to down the road, there's some DLC that out next week, I believe, for Infamous. Is that right? First Light?
Yep.
So that was a good one that we spoke highly of.
And that's standalone DLC, so you don't have to actually own Second Son to be able to play that. So very cool game. I have to ask a question, though. Earlier, KT said it's like you're stuck in an MMO. Like a person being stuck in an MMO. The Sword Art on what was it called? So is that like? So while he was saying that, I was like, that sounds just like The Matrix. So is The Matrix the story of a guy being stuck in an MMO? Yeah, right. Because the whole time that he's trying to do things, he's in a big multiplayer world, and the agents just happen to come in. That's it. It's like Ready Player One, but forcibly stuck into the Oasis, right?
If you die in the game, you die in real life.
Oh, that's snap. MMO.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, do you guys have any other? Do you guys have any other new releases that you know of or are looking forward to? Not new, but like future releases that you're looking forward to.
Honestly, Destiny is the only thing that I give a crap about through the end of the year. Like,
Little Big Planet for me is in there as well, and that's supposed to be coming soon.
Dragon Age Inquisition, I had such a bad time with Dragon Age 2, and I was so disappointed in it that I'm like, it'll have to get above a 9 for me to even consider picking this up, because Dragon Age 2, I was really thinking, Dragon Age 1 had some really good ideas, and they're going to capitalize on these. And then Dragon Age 2, it was like they had 4 places for these games to be taking place, or for 4 different lands, for things to happen in, and then they just reskinned it over and over and over and over again. And I was like, I'm in the same exact freaking place this entire game. It was so frustrating. So I have no faith. I love BioWare. Mass Effect is my favorite game series ever. Dragon Age was such a huge disappointment that I just want Destiny at this point. You, Robin, is there anything that you're looking forward to?
I don't know. For me, yeah, it's still Destiny at this point. I'm really, really jazzed to go down to Fantastic Arcade at Austin, name drop. But they're going to be showing a lot of the indie games that are coming up. That was where I first saw Hohokum last year. And like, it's just fantastic. It's like all these like really interesting games. Like ones that are like out now are Curse of the Necrodancer, which is you can play with like a little DDR pad, and it is fascinating. I'll show it to you guys later. But I'm excited to go to that so I know what to be excited for.
Right on.
Cool. Very cool. Inside scoop. Okay, cool. Well, that's new releases. Let's do some indie games. Ready?
Yeah.
I always make the music up for the indie game. Indie game. It's the indie game. It's the indie game of the week. Yeah.
Perfect pitch. I love.
Yeah, I hit it. I'm trying to figure out how much time we have in the show, but I'm just going to keep cracking. I'm just going to go.
If we go long, cool. Who cares?
It's cool. It's not like people will listen to us no matter what we're doing. We got the Robin Haislett right here with us.
Yeah, almost Dr. Robin Haislett.
Almost Dr. So, our indie game of the week this week was The Wolf Among Us. If you played along with us, if you have some thoughts, we'd love to hear those on Twitter to hear what you thought about the game. For us, I'll give you the breakdown. It's a TellTale game. This is based on the Fable comics by Bill Willingham, and it's kind of a prequel. So it happens, I guess, decades before the actual first issue of the Last of Us happens.
Rated.
And it's
Among Us.
That's what I was saying, Among Us. I flipped over to watch what KT was showing, and I got distracted. Basically, your character, gameplay, by the way, gameplay is a point-and-click type of adventure that it's really story-based. There's a little bits of action, but you're choosing conversation and selecting what you say to kind of the characters remember what you say. We did this a while ago with the Telltale game, The Walking Dead, and my aversion to zombies kind of affected my review of that particular game. But Wolf Among Us, same style of game. Basic idea then is that you are the big bad wolf, and all of these fable creatures are living in a town called Homelands. Is that right? Like an area called Homelands?
No, they fled the Homelands.
Fled the Homelands to this place in New York City where they're all using some sort of magic to keep them looking like real people when they're in public.
Right.
And if you can't afford that magic, if you can't pay for that magic, you're sent off to the farm, which is like upstate New York that nobody can find. So you get to play the big bad wolf, and you first, like in this first episode that we'll cover, you come in contact with the woodsman, the one that slices your belly open, because you know that story. It fills you full of rocks. In fact, that to me is just fun to hear them tying in those stories into this like new dialogue that you're having with the woodman. So the woodsman is there, Snow White's there. There's a winged monkey, Ichabod Crane. There's so many awesome characters that all kind of come together that you start weaving this story. I'm assuming the story changes a little bit depending on what choices you make.
So it's very similar to The Walking Dead,
right?
In that
you still have a linear story with sort of side tangents.
Exactly, and the choices you make and the conversations that you have all have consequences, whether good or bad. So down the road, people that you help now may help you later. People that you screw over now will screw you over later. And you're already playing this character that nobody trusts because of your past.
Right.
Like your history has kind of pushed people to like really distrust you at your core because you were the big bad wolf. And so one of the things that I found really interesting is that one of the three little pigs like hangs out in your pad and drinks bourbon with you, like smokes your cigarettes.
Yep.
Yeah. They did a great job of animating that too, because every time that he would say something or do something, you like when he drinks out of your cup or something, I half expect him to pick it up and drink like a normal person. He just gets down on the floor. I thought that was fantastic. Art style on this thing's awesome.
So I just have to say this, since you brought up him drinking out of the cup. I replayed this. So I played it I played it twice through on my PS3, and then just kind of to rehash it prior to us recording tonight, I played through it on the iPad as I flew up here. And that scene where the pig is lapping up the bourbon, the guy sitting next to me like glanced down at my iPad and just was like, oh.
What the
Shook his head and looked to the side.
Kids
and I was
these
just
days.
like, yep, it's a pig drinking bourbon. I don't know what to say. So for you, Drew, first of all, like, you really did not like The Walking Dead, and that was TellTale's kind of coming out story, right? So
yes.
Is this helping you better understand why we liked the first one so much?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. What I hate zombies, and so that's what probably got me with The Walking Dead, because it was just kind of like, all right, me and this girl, all right, save that guy, don't save that guy. So I wasn't as concerned about who I was, because I just had this like aversion.
Right.
Style of gameplay was okay. Again, it's kind of like a weird choose your own adventures, getting used to it. Maybe it was because I played that first, but this one with The Wolf Among Us, I really was into the story more. I played on the iPad because I can't play on the PS3, because I wanted to play while the kids were still around doing it, right. So I put on the headphones and got to work. I did enjoy the story. I was much more in tune with it. I really love Fables and anything fantasy. I didn't realize until after I'd played through it and a little bit and knew that it was based on the Fables comic that I had a chance to interview Bill Willingham in my life as a con shooter. Huh. So I was like, oh, I had to go find that interview and see what he was talking about back then, because it would have been about 3 years ago. But we talked about Fables and that kind of stuff. So overall, I think the gameplay was fun. I kind of felt like it was a pretty good balance in this first episode of like story and choosing my choices, and then like when you're chasing somebody or being chased and you have to slide or swipe so that you're not getting hit. I did have a couple of jump scares, which I thought was enjoyable for me, because it was just that much. It meant that I was that much more into the game. When Tweedledee, I think, comes jumping out of a closet and I didn't expect it. It was just like. So that I love that kind of stuff. So I think this one I am far more interested in. The gameplay is appealing to me. The story is even more so.
Very cool. What about you, Robin?
It's very tough for me to not go like super fan on this and say you have to get the season pass. You have to play every single one of these episodes. But it really is a spectacular use of video games in a different way. So it really does feel like a choose your own adventure thing, and it helps give a little bit of flexibility in what games are. It's kind of what, the game Gone Home has done. It's what Last of Us has done. I love it. I love the art style, the cell shading. Like, I think that was one of the biggest reasons that I liked Borderlands, because I'm shallow like that. But I have no shame. But I really liked it, and we've all at least gotten to the end of the first episode. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so we can discuss the end of the first episode.
Yeah, I think we do that. So a little spoiler alert.
It's been out for a while. Yeah.
Yep.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, it's been out. So I was trying desperately to figure out how to not see Snow White's severed head on the doorstep. I was like, no, I was just getting attached to this character. How could you do this to me? You've broken my heart. So I replayed it like 3 times, staying up until about 4 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just like,
trying to save Snow White.
I don't want this to happen.
It's because they're like hinting at you, right? Like I can't remember if it's the pig, but somebody says something about how, like, I know how you look at her, or I know how you feel.
Yeah, it's Colin.
Yeah, Colin. And so there is this sense that your character, and they do it very well, like it's subtle, the way that they kind of create this relationship with Snow. And so, yeah, definitely, I mean, to end up, you've just had this traumatic incident with Faith where you find her head, and man, they just did such a good job of making you care about this character in 20 minutes. Because you go in, you save her from the woodsman, and she says, like, the line she says to you that, like, kind of breaks through the rough exterior of Bigby is, you're not as bad as everyone thinks. Mm-hmm. And that, like, that's a pretty simple line to throw into this game, but like that game, or that line carries a lot of power, right? Because throughout the entire rest of the game, you're the good guy who's also a bad guy, and everyone distrusts you, even though you're the one guy.
You're trying to keep it all together.
And trying to keep it together and trying to keep people alive. And so for this, prostitute to be like, you're not as bad as everybody says you are. And then to find her head on your stairs is a fairly traumatic thing to have happen.
Sad. So sad.
In the game, right?
Yeah, I'm excited to pick up. I'm going to get the season pass and play through the rest. So I'm excited to see how that ends because I really did like her, and I'm hoping they don't do that again in each episode where they're like, "Here's your favorite character now," and there goes her head.
Right.
Like this one? George R. R. Martin treatment.
Yeah, right. So I know I'm kind of excited to see it and to play it through. I'm kind of late to the game, but I like the gameplay, and it's nice for a relaxing like storytelling moment. And like you were saying, Robin, I love the unique way that storytelling is woven into gameplay. It's really well done.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any other like favorite parts or least favorite parts that we want to discuss? I know that we're kind of pushing long in our episode today.
We have a special guest, and she's almost a doctor, so it's okay to go long.
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to mention a couple things that I really liked. So one of the things that I really appreciate, first of all, is the color palette that they use in this game. I love like the neon lights. They somehow kind of have this cool like meshing of 80s neon with like this film noir feel.
Yes.
Like
I don't know how they did that, but yes.
When he's going through the intro of the game and it has this cool kind of 80s soundtrack music going, and he's walking underneath these neon street lights and cars are passing him, like it just sets such a great tone. Like one of my very favorite parts of this game is just the atmosphere that is created by the colors that are used and the music that's used. That for me has been like the biggest overarching kind of positive that I can put on the entire thing. I love the storytelling, I love the characters, but like for me, it's the atmosphere that's created with those two tools, the color palette and the music, that really bring and tie everything together for me. What about you guys? Like, what was the scene, or because I mean, obviously we all liked it, right? Like this is a game that all three of us would recommend. So what is it that made this work for you?
I think that one of the things, I'll go on the downside first. I think that one of the things that kind of threw me off a little bit at times was like the QuickTime events. Okay. There were some of the QuickTime events that I didn't think worked quite as well as others, because I'm like, I'm watching the fight scene kind of sort of grow, and you can see there's going to be a conflict here. That one I think worked out really well, but when you're doing just like a little quick move or a quick dash or something like that, it was kind of out of the blue, and I'm like, I thought that I was going to have to read the story and figure out how to respond in this little bitty time limit that's like slowly closing in on you.
Yeah.
But the thing that I like the most about the game itself with the storytelling aspect is that you always had the option of saying nothing.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. And I did that sometimes on accident, not even meaning to. It was like, I chose
trying to decide. You're like, I don't know. I'm out of
Yep.
I was playing it with friends at first, and I would say, like, I have no idea what to do. What do I hit? Hit X. No, hit B. Like, so.
Very cool. What about you, Drew?
What were you asking? Favorite moments or
favorite moment, least favorite moment?
I don't know that I had a least. My favorite was probably when Tweedledee jumped out of the closet and scared me because I was totally not expecting that. I was in this mode of like just, the tapping the selectable parts and just be, okay, let's check that. Okay, let's check that. Okay, let's check that. And then just getting there and having him like burst out and start running. It was like, ooh, gotta do something now. Switch. So I think that was probably one of my favorites. Least favorite was probably the moment where you're in the bar and you have a choice to chase one or the other. And I didn't realize that was coming up. Like I didn't even realize that. Probably because I was still trying to like figure out what the discussion was happening beforehand. But to choose, because it does this kind of slow motion of like you can go with him there, or she's leaving the door, or I can't remember who the two were. But anyway,
Tweedledee and the Woodsman.
And he's heading to the bathroom, and you think, oh no, I'm trying to keep him. At this point, I'd already kind of suspected Tweedledee, but for some reason I hit the wrong. I'm wrong. I went for the Woodsman because. I don't know my decisions anymore, but I guess that's the one I just kind of felt like, did I do the right thing? I don't know. I let him go, and now, so that's the one I just, see, maybe that's what the replay.
Replayability all the time.
Have time to replay, but that's it. I did enjoy most of that, and I just love story. I love a good fresh story, and especially something from that comic book world. I have not read the Fables, but I've heard of them. So.
Love them because of this is when I started picking up the Fables comics, and now I'm on like volume 13 off of the Comixology app. So like half of my storage on my iPad is now like Fables.
That's awesome.
That's what.
So the other, I want to mention one other thing that I really liked, and that's that the fables that they are telling, the stories and the backstories of these characters, like they are the real fairy tales.
Yeah.
Like, not getting the Disney version of fairy tales. Like we are getting imperfect characters, very flawed characters. Like I love that the Woodsman is a thief. Like he talks about how he went to rob Little Red Riding Hood and her grandma, and just happened there just happened to be a wolf there, so he killed it. Like you have. I don't know, when you think of classic like fairy tale stories, everyone's perfect, right? Like you watch it, you grow up with Disney movies, so you grow up knowing that all the princesses were perfect and that all the princes were perfect. You don't ever see them, taking sleeping pills and shooting themselves in the chest, like you find Prince Lawrence, right? So I appreciated that they were telling. I mean, it kind of is telling like a fairy tale to adults, and that to me is intriguing, and I like that.
Yeah, it was definitely the Grimm version, like the Grimm's brothers version of the fairy tales. Like, this is the real one. Like, the wolf doesn't just get killed, he gets killed, gets his stomach slit open, stuffed full of rocks, sewn up, and then thrown into the bottom of the body of water that's by them.
Right. Yeah, so I definitely appreciate that. So for me, this is a must play. I couldn't recommend, like as far as the indie games go, like this is a game that needs to be played. Do you guys agree? Is this a must play?
I think for me it's a good play. I'm stingy, I'm stingy, so I'd say if it's on sale, if you got a chance to grab it on the cheap, it's wonderful, and grab it, and it's definitely worth the story behind it. But I'm a cheap ass.
That's true. If you play episode 2, Drew, make sure your children are not close by. Episode 2 has
like from
Rudy's.
It's always
from here on out. Just
it gets even
all the way.
There's so many F-bombs in the first one.
I know. I'm just why is Snow White cussing?
Yeah, I did. I played the first one on the PS3. Not first one, the demo. So it was only like that one scene, I think, with Toad and Woodsman, and I turned it on and played while my wife was chatting with somebody on the couch, and I quickly was like, oh, no, wow, oh, whoops, because we're all tender souls. So, yes, I will definitely keep it to myself.
Very cool. What about you?
Absolutely. Like, I got the season pass, ran through it all, played a couple of the episodes different ways, because apparently I can stay up really, really late, and Child gets to go to sleep a little bit earlier, so...
There you go. See, this is a game, though, and it's been announced that this is coming out to PS4. This is a game that I would probably pick up and play again on the PS4 just so I could use the controller. Like, to be able to use the touchpad on the controller and be able to swipe left and right rather than like thumbstick over and try and figure, like, to me, this game deserves a better controller than the DualShock 3. And so to be able to play it on the PS4 with the DualShock 4, I think it's a game that makes sense.
The DualShock 4 just deserves a better battery life.
That's true. Yeah, definitely. So that wraps up our indie game of the week. We're going to jump into our just our main topic of the week, which, Robin, if you're okay with, I mean, this is kind of
it's like the bonus
your
zone,
topic, right?
I am the bonus topic.
You kind of are, really. So we just wanted to talk. So you, as part of your PhD, have been studying what sexuality within video games, the indie game relationships. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been studying and what your approach has been, and maybe what motivated you to get into this in the first place?
Well, I'll give you the extremely truncated version.
Cool.
In my master's program, we were looking at communication theory and things like postmodernism and, how people have created stories like heroes' journeys, things like that. And all I was thinking is, a lot of the games that I've played have used a lot of these techniques. And then Final Fantasy was my absolute favorite game of all time. Final Fantasy VII, we'll get that specific. And saw a lot of these themes popping up in it. And then I took a gender and communication class and realized that a lot of themes dealing with feminism and like third wave feminism were popping up in that. Things like how everyone is connected, games provide a safe space for people to experiment with different identities, different modes of behavior without having any major repercussions. And so what I did with that is I said, I love this video game. Let's take it apart. And so I can have that confirmation of how amazing Final Fantasy VII is. And in the process of taking it apart, I realized this really wasn't the perfect game that I remember it being when I played it when I was 13 years old. And it was insane to dig it apart like that and then seek out themes dealing with feminist themes, because there isn't really a like, this is what a feminist would believe, but it's a very free flowing, movable set of ideals, I guess you could say.
Okay.
So that's where it all started in my master's program. And then I started in my PhD and started looking at, what are fans doing with this? When you mod video games, like, who really owns that? Is that copyrighted? Is it, like, who is the one who actually holds that intellectual property? And I kept on talking about Fantastic Fest earlier. Fantastic Fest is a whole kind of independent film festival, and then inside of it, for a little quick weekend out of this whole week-long event, is Fantastic Arcade. Totally free, and it's amazing.
And is that indie games mostly?
Yeah, they're primarily indie games. Hey, way to pull it up. But people can submit their own games. Vlambeer, the Hotline Miami, that was the place where I started seeing some of these really interesting games. And I blame my advisor, Dr. Peasley, who wanted us to volunteer at Fantastic Fest. And then I discovered, hey, there's this thing called Fantastic Arcade. Maybe I should look at indie games. And so what I've been doing with indie games right now is case studies, looking at specific indie developers and what their process is, what are the games that they're making, why are they making the games, how is that different, because now people like Sony are heavily sponsoring things like Fantastic Arcade and saying, you know, we're running out of ideas. Our ship is currently on a set path. That's why we have so many sequels, because the formula that we have works. Because if it's been bought once, it'll be bought again and again and again.
Right.
And so now the ship has become too big to change course. So what they're doing is going out to all of these indie game festivals. They're doing things at E3 that are just indie game based. Was it Game City in, I think it's London, and especially like IGF, the Independent Games Festival, and they're out there kind of recruiting independent game developers and saying, we don't want to mess with you. You have the idea, you build the game, we'll just fund you for a little bit of exclusivity right at the very beginning, but your game will always be yours. Like, we're not going to take the IP. And so I'm looking at how that's changing. So it isn't like the hipster ideal of like, ooh, you're working with Sony, you've just sold out. It's like, you're working with Sony, awesome. And the people that I met from Sony there, from the development teams, they're like the nicest people that I've seen in a long time. The actual developers for the indie games, like Rami Ismaili, and like other people from Lambier, it's just a really, really amazing experience. And I thought that if people could actually understand like the actual on ground collaboration of that, and how it's not a competition. They'll have a lot of indie game developers helping out each other across, I don't know if you could even call them studios, because there's just like one or two people working on a game.
Right.
And they'll put out a call on Twitter with the hashtag game dev or indie game dev or whatever they choose and say, we're having trouble testing this. Can somebody please, help us test this game and give us feedback? Or we don't know how to program this part. Does somebody know how to? And they'll just out and collaborate with them for, no money or anything. There's no contract signed. It's, do you have a problem? We could fix it.
Right. Very cool. So one of the things that I think is really interesting about what you just said was, and it's an issue that comes up anytime Sony has a press conference that highlights indie games, which has been a lot recently. But there's this feeling within, and I don't know if it's just a vocal minority, but people lose their minds when Sony is like, hey, these are the indie games we're pushing. And they're like, we need more AAA games. Why are we wasting time on these indie games? But I really liked what you just said about how AAA games have become, with very few exceptions, they've become like this. They're on a baking sheet and you just have these cookie cutters, right, that you're just clamping out. I think Watch Dogs is a perfect example of that. Like, that was touted as being this brand new experience that like would revolutionize everything and it was going to be so awesome. And it was like a dumbed down version of Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Yeah. Where on the indie game side, you have this freedom and this flexibility that encourages creativity in a way that AAA games no longer have the luxury of doing. Like, I think the investors for some of these major studios, I don't think they're not interested in risk, right? Like, if you're investing in a studio, you are looking for return. It's ROI, right? Everything's ROI, ROI, ROI. So when they say, hey, we've got this formula that just works every single time, you're going to push that. That's all that's ever going to be pushed. And so I fall onto the side that, like, I have loved that we have, like, put some more focus on indie games within just this podcast, like with trying to do this indie game of the week and really break down some indie games. And I think Drew and I both, I don't think either of us were really heavily playing indie games prior to starting that. I'd played a couple, and I think, Drew, you'd played a couple, correct?
Yeah, and the ones that I had played, I loved just for that idea that they can push boundaries, they can and have done things that work or don't work. So
right.
Yeah, I think this has certainly gotten me more into them.
And it's been something that's been really cool to see the creativity really blossom within, and really like the availability of content when you incorporate indie games into what is happening. Like Brothers, I think, is a really great example of
I loved Brothers.
an indie game title that would never survive as a AAA title. Like, if you were to turn that into a AAA game, like, it wouldn't have survived. It wouldn't have done the numbers that they needed it to do to be able to call it a success. But as an indie game on a low budget, it was such a beautiful and heartbreaking story. Child of Light is... and while
they made Sisters, I'd totally play Sisters too.
Right. Well, and while Child of Light is like technically not an indie game because it's an Ubisoft art studio game, you've got to give props to Ubisoft for recognizing like, hey, there is this market for creative,
artistic,
interesting artistic games. That I really appreciate. So I just thought that what you said was really cool about the way that indie games encourage creativity in a way that AAA titles can really no longer embrace. I mean, with very rare exceptions, right? The other thing I really thought was interesting, and you didn't mention this here, but you mentioned it in the... so I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I was able to sit in on... I guess kind of your job interview, right? Like,
yeah, you sat in on my job talk. That was one of the more stressful things that I have endured. So you got to see me sweat.
Yeah, it was awesome though. So I, at the time I was a student. I've been graduated for 4 days. I was a student back then.
With EDM blasting in your ears.
Yeah, right. So I was invited to go in and listen to you give your presentation, which I thought was awesome. So thank you for letting me do that. And yeah, it was rad. But you talked about Journey specifically and how Journey was this very unique game within even the indie game world because of its approach to sexuality. And I wondered if you could kind of break that down a little bit for us. So we've used Journey as an indie game of the week in the past. So we've already talked about it. We've spoiled the entire game. So if we have regular listeners, and the thing that's funny about Journey is like you can't spoil Journey. Like Journey is about the journey, right? It's not about me saying that you make it to a mountain.
Except for the part where Drew didn't realize until after he played through the entire thing that the people you're playing with are other players and not that part I didn't figure out until we were in the middle of a podcast and I was like, oh wait, hold on.
No, it's like the reward in Journey is who you meet. It's not about the destination.
And that really is, I mean, Journey is one of the few games that's really true. Like I can think of specific moments in this 2.5 hour game, right? Like a super short game. I can think of specific moments within that game that I was just like, wow, like just totally taken aback and was just shocked at the experience that I was having. So can you explain a little bit about that? Like maybe just a blip from, the presentation that you gave. Why is Journey significant?
The biggest reason that I really enjoyed Journey was because it's the only multiplayer game where I feel quote unquote safe. Like, it sounds chintzy to say that, but like I won't play Destiny with headphones. I kind of keep my identity to myself. Journey is a game where your identity is already masked until the very end, so you can kind of try out and see if this other person is going to be someone who's going to help you, or if they're going to, go off on their own and find the little glyphs and not really pay too much attention to you. So you get to try out friendships before you actually have to make yourself vulnerable. And hi, Kat. The other part that I really thought was interesting is that the Wayfarer, your character, it has no sex, it has no gender, and it's funny because everyone always assumes that your character is a he. At least whenever I've talked to people about it. The thing that I had taken apart in one of the things that I had written for In Media Res, it was the idea of a Bechdel test for games. Y'all know what I mean by Bechdel test?
No, you probably ought to break that down.
Okay. Bechdel was it wasn't the person who did it. It was off of a person. Yeah, there you go. It was from a friend who had told this person in the comic what qualifies as a movie that she would go see. And she said that for her to go and see a movie, it needs to have at least 2 females and let's see, does it have 2 females, and do they talk to each other about anything besides the main male character? And it is very shocking. And when I found out about the Bechdel test, I started thinking about the movies that I liked, and almost none of those movies passed that. Usually if there was a female character, they were talking to the male character, or they were the love interest. But there was never 2 females discussing something that wasn't the male character.
Right.
The really interesting thing that we did, because I worked on this one with Dr. Peasley as well, is, well, if you could have a Bechdel test for movies for testing whether or not this is, maybe possibly a good representation for one or both genders, why can't we have something like that for video games? So we tried to come up with something minorly equivalent to that, saying, can the main character be a male or a female? Does that main character have access to all of the abilities from other characters? Because all I was thinking is, the females are usually the healers of the group, or they're the support system or something like that. And I started thinking back to Final Fantasy X. Can you see there's a theme with the Final Fantasy thing? It's bad. But when you're looking at the sphere grid, you have access to everyone's abilities, but it just depends on which one you want to do first. So, and then can that character... Gosh, I can't even remember the last one that we said. But going back...
can the characters pursue a goal beyond killing a foe?
Yeah.
Or rescuing a female?
Like, something has to be dominated, something has to be rescued, there has to be, like, this end goal that can only be reached by killing or defeating another thing. So we were thinking about that and, like, what games would possibly pass that. There you go, the Final Fantasy sphere grid. So you could start at any point with any character, and you could go anywhere with that. So all of the abilities are available to you. It just takes, different amounts of time to get there.
What so that was one world? What is that picture?
You would understand it if you'd played it.
It's okay. You get skill points, and you get to spend the skill points on whatever ability you want to do in that area. Like, do you want to learn a spell, or do you want to get greater attack, kind of thing?
Oh, okay. It looked like pretty art. It was beautiful.
It was like, there's lots of circles here.
Yeah.
So very cool. So then, with the Bechdel test, like what games did you find that like met those requirements?
It's really tough to find games that meet that, like, that set of, totally ambiguous criteria. We racked our brains over, what the criteria could be for quite a while. And, like, Journey was a huge example of that. It's like, you don't know if the character is male or female. The abilities are all flatlined because you don't have to worry about them too much. And the end goal is that you have, you've reached your destination. You haven't had to, truly destroy anything to do it. But
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, like even in playing Journey, like I know you said that it had like the, like a little bit of a sucker punch to it. It's like, and almost every time that I play it, I haven't been able to play it very much, maybe about 5 or 6 times. Every time that I get to the end, I just get all teary-eyed because, have you ever played it where somebody writes something in the snow at the end?
What?
Yeah.
No. Wait, they could write something in the snow? Like I was there and somebody sat down for a long time and I was like, get up, let's go. Maybe I don't need you. So they write?
Yeah, you use the character, and if you look at like some Journey fan art, they'll have pictures of, somebody writing a heart in the snow. And that's like saying, thank you, good game. I really enjoyed playing alongside you. And so you can like write a heart in the snow, like move your character to draw that out. And so it's like they're finding different ways to communicate in a game where the only thing that you can do is just put the little symbol above your head with that little ping.
Yeah, I chirp all the time, and that's like, hey, how you doing? Let's go this way. Come on, hey, this is fun. That's how
I know. I feel like a chipmunk when I'm in there. Like, hey, no, come over here. The glyph is over here. Why are you going that way? No, wait, come here.
Do you have a white Wayfarer? Did you get the white one? You did, of course. Yeah. I only played 2 times, and the second time I was with somebody that was showing me all the glyphs. They were white, and I was excited for that, and I didn't get to finish. But I love that idea that they're trying to find new ways and other ways to communicate. That drawing in the snow, walking shapes. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Such a great game. So then the only other question then that I have is like with the Bechdel test, does a game like The Last of Us work with the Bechdel test? Because I mean, Ellie is such a strong female, despite being young and despite, I don't know. I mean, Ellie and Joel both lean upon each other, right? Like they're two pieces of a compass that lean on each other to survive. And so in that way, does The Last of Us fulfill the requirements of the Bechdel test?
I don't think that it fulfills the whole requirements of that Bechdel test, but I think it was a huge step in trying to represent, both genders in more positive ways, because you have Joel, who's this extremely hard-hearted, who's gone through like extreme trauma. I cried within the first 20 minutes, just so you know. He's gone through extreme trauma. His heart is very, very hardened, but he figures out how to be a human again.
Right.
Like this disease, this outbreak, the cordyceps fungus, did more than take away the lifestyle that he had. It literally took away like pieces of him from the inside, and it had nothing to do with the actual virus or cordyceps fungus.
Right.
But it showed that he doesn't have to be like this big, huge, macho, unfeeling thing when he finally figured out how to reclaim who he was, which was a huge part of that game.
Right.
That's when it got really dynamic, and Ellie was very strong, and you can always tell that she had aged beyond her years. Like mass catastrophe will do that to people.
Right. Well, and the DLC, the Left Behind DLC, really ties that story of Ellie together as well, and solidifies her as really her own character. Like she's someone who has a life and an entity and a personality beyond Joel, which with the original game, like you only ever see her with Joel. And so, very interesting. Well, we're just about out of time. Drew, is there anything that you want to ask Robin about
Can we find some sort of video game / digital media research that we could just publish together? Let's just find something that gives us an excuse to play games and put videos with it.
I'm totally up for it. I did a paper on Last of Us, so
there you go. See, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some research.
Popular Culture Association, Broadcasters Association.
Yep, that's.
See, I feel like I could have got it away with something like that with you, Drew, because of this podcast. But the only other teacher on campus at Weber State that I feel like I could have gotten away with writing about a game would be Ann by Lois. Doc Ann is freaking.
It's not getting away with it. Trust me, it is hard.
No, for sure. But there are professors there that I think if I wrote that, they would
totally discount it. Yeah.
This doesn't count as a real thing. And
see, that's why I wanted to start, being a professor and started to integrate things of gameness into pretty much every aspect of life because they're already here.
Right.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, totally.
Well, and it's playing a huge role in pop culture. It's taking over. So, thank you, Robin, for being on today's show.
Thank you for having me.
Pushed almost an hour and 40 minutes, so it's almost 2:00 here. So I'm going to try and go to sleep before I have to work a trade show tomorrow.
Good luck to you. I get to watch kids all day. It's cool.
That's awesome. So if you have any questions, like to join the conversation, you can email us at littlebigkast@ktdata.net. You can follow us on Twitter at littlebigkast. And we also should probably give Robin a shout out.
Hey,
Her
Robin.
Twitter handle is @Robin Haislett. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's really creative. I know. It's like first name, last name, squish.
It sounds pretty professional. And mine is @Jeff Hawks. So it's like pointers. So creativity be damned. It's effective. And you can follow Drew @Night20.
Yep.
So
that's where you'll find me @Night20, and that's my creative handle that I've had for many years that I'll never disclose.
I'm gonna figure it out one of these days, and then I'm gonna write. I'm gonna just.
You'll let everyone know.
I'm gonna write a paper about what Night20 is.
Okay.
Night20. The source of Night20 is something that you can't even find on Google. That's how weird it must be. Like if you can't find it on the internet, it's pretty dark.
It's not dark.
It is like Knight Rider.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Let's go with Knight Rider. Hey, Michael, would you like me to drive you here?
Very cool. Well, hey, so thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. A major, huge thank you and shout out to the future Dr. Robin Haislett.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to have you on shows in the future. Anytime you want to just hang out, we would love to hang out and just chat games. So, that about wraps it up. So, Casey, you can just kick off the music. And, yeah.